gloomy, but we're gonna do it. Hi, hello, my name is Rachel. Welcome to my channel, and today's video is another one in a series that I have been doing for a while on this channel, and it's basically a book review slash what notes would I give the author if I was their editor. Today's book is We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faizal. This is the second book in the We Hunt the Flame duology. Here's the first one, here's the second one. But to begin with, what I'm gonna do is just give like a very brief review, no spoilers. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I absolutely loved this book. The plot in this one, I just found it very interesting. I think the way in which she wrote it is very unique. I loved the characters. She did really well with doing like the boring middle stuff. She made it interesting, and the pacing of it was really good. I absolutely love Zafira. I love Nasir. I love Altair. I love Kifa. I love all the side characters. It's a unique type of story. I don't know if I've ever read a story that was written like this, and there's lots of like allusions and different things, and so in my mind it's just very unique. I really liked it. Highly recommend if you like YA fantasy. Now, if you haven't read this book or We Hunt the Flame, this video, the rest of it, is going to be full of spoilers for both We Hunt the Flame and this book. So if you haven't read them, go read them and then come back, because I want you to like read this and then come back and like let me know if you agree with me or not. And if you disagree, like what things you would change or what things you wouldn't change, or you're like, girl, you crazy. Like, would love to hear all of that. Another disclaimer that I always put on these is this video is not for Miss Hafsa Faizal. This is not a video for her editors. This isn't a video for the publishers. Nothing like that. This is just an exercise that I enjoy doing, just to kind of keep me sharp when it comes to editing. I really enjoy doing this. So no hate to the people who were involved in creating this book, not at all. This is just my opinions. It's very subjective, so keep that in mind. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. How I've done this is basically I've split it up into 3 different sections. I don't really have an overall thing this time. And then at the end, what I typically do is talk about what I hope for the future with the series, because I've only done series. But since this is the end of a series, instead what I'm gonna do is kind of a surprise and a plea to Miss Hafsa. But first, the 3 different things. Let's start off with cut out some of the fluff. There were lots of scenes in which she was doing like small little things within it, like just one small thing, and then go to another scene with like the same 2 people and then do another small thing. There were just too many of those where it felt like she could have just combined scenes together, so then it would just be one cohesive scene and you're doing all the things, layering them on top of each other, so then we don't have to have so many little scenes. Because I don't know if you saw, but this book, it's a lot thicker, and also the writing is still tiny. The length of this book is not necessary as is. Definitely some things could have been taken out. Specifically, there was a travel scene between Nasir and Zafira that I think could have been shortened. It'd be different if it was written a little bit differently, where some more things were happening, but with what the plot is, like as is, I would take out some of that. And then also there were lots of scenes with the Silver Witch. I feel like a lot of them weren't necessary. There's specifically one that I'm thinking of when the Silver Witch came to Zafira in a dream, and really it wasn't anything other than just to re-say something that she's already said before. And so I don't think that that was necessary. I think we could have taken that out. There's some fluff scenes with Zafira and Yasmine. There's some fluff scenes with Altair and Kifa. And I feel like their friendship was already like established. We would have a whole chapter that was kind of devoted specifically, it felt like, to just establishing their friendship again. I don't think was necessary. I think you could have overlapped us finding out things with some of their banter, so then you're doing both at the same time. So basically just like tightening up some of the plot and tightening up kind of the writing style and like the pacing. It doesn't drag as much because it felt like a good portion of this was dragging a little bit. And so I think it would have helped overlapping some scenes and just putting them together. That way you can do a lot more in a scene than just do a tiny thing and then move on to the next one, do a tiny thing, do a whole bunch of tiny things in one chapter. You don't just have to do one per chapter. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would do is explain the action better. There were a few times during like battle scenes and like kissing, not really intimate, but like kind of just like kissing romantic scenes, that the actions weren't really described of like how they got where. Specifically, there was one scene, it was a battle scene. It was when Misk died, and they were so busy fighting all these Ifrit. Like there was an elder Ifrit there that they were fighting, and then Misk fell because he got shot with an arrow and died, and there was enough time for Zafira just to like sit with him, and like Yasmine came out of nowhere and like sat with him. It was like the battle was over, and yet like that wasn't talked about. Like there was literally like Ifrit right there. So it's kind of like, where did they go? Did they finish the battle? It wasn't clear that that little battle had ended and that they now had time to like sit and grieve over Misk. There was also another scene in which Zafira and Nasir kissed, and they were like on a horse, and Zafira was in front of Nasir, and she ended up like twisting and like pushing him off the horse, but it didn't say that like they both fell off, so like I wasn't sure if like they both did. And then all of a sudden either they were standing or they were back on the horse or something like that, and like her back was to his front, and I think, and then like they kissed. And so I was just like, so wait, are they on the ground? Are they on the horse? Like, where are they? It was just very confusing. And so like I had to read that part over and over again because I was like, wait, where are they? Just explaining the action, especially in places where it's needed. Zafira and Nasir, they hardly kiss. I think they kissed maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole of the duology. And so to emphasize those moments, you want to make them bigger. It's not good enough to just do and they kissed. You want to add that tension in there of them, you know, taking a step closer. Oh, and he takes a step closer, and he looks deeply into her eyes, and her heart is beating, and she feels like she's coming out of her skin, you know, whatever. Like you gotta dress it up a little bit, because if it's just and then they kiss and then that's it doesn't hold as much weight to it, especially when you've built up the tension for it. Which brings me to my last point. This is really the biggest point that I have, probably the most involved point, is breaking the tension. Something that Hafsa is really good at, that a lot of people are not good at, a lot of authors aren't good at least not naturally, is building up tension and like adding tension to stories. What she is not good at, that I don't understand, is finally putting in that breaking tension scene. So those super dramatic scenes. The two big things, the two huge things, I'm going to start off with like the smaller of the two, and then I'll go into the last one. There are plenty of times during this book that Zafira and Nasir aren't together. Like they separate and they're doing different things, and then they come back together. And the reuniting scenes, garbage. Even when Zafira reunited with Lana, like it's treated very laissez-faire. And I think it's because emotions aren't talked about, like what's going on in their head isn't talked about, like physically, like what is going on isn't really talked about. It's just like glazed over. And then also actual like feelings, like body feelings, or like what you smell, or like none of that stuff is described. And those are like big powerful moments where Nasir and Zafira had just had a fight and they go separate ways, and then when they come back together, like they're missing each other. Like that moment when they're coming back together because they miss each other should be a big moment, should be described more, should be more than just like, he just gave me a look and I kind of gave him a look and we talked. It shouldn't be that chill. Also, the very last scene when Zafira and Nasir actually like, they finally like chose each other and like came back together was so underwhelming too. And it's crazy because these should be the scenes that are like the most fun to write, because that's when you're finally like doing, like they're finally getting together or they're finally doing this thing, and like that's the most fun part to read too. And so for it not to hit was so disappointing. Like it definitely should have been where they had a long conversation about their feelings. It should have been more than just a 2-page thing. It literally was just a 2-page thing where she shows up, they're reunited, they say like a few sentences to each other, and then they're together. That's not enough. That is not enough. Especially since a big part of Nasir's story is the fact that he has a hard time talking about his feelings and what he wants. And so for a final scene to be him actually divulging all of those feelings, all of those thoughts, to have like a really good scene where they're both having a really emotional conversation, a very real conversation about their feelings for each other, and not just like a few sentences here and there, would have been so meaningful. Nasir is sometimes a flirt, and so it would have been cute to like see him like flirting with her more and like her reciprocating. Like that just would have been a fun scene, like for them to have this really beautiful conversation, and then at the end it'd be like this spicy little flirting conversation. But we didn't get that. Like I am happy that they ended up together, obviously, and like I'm happy with where it ended. I just wish that those more dramatic scenes were actually more dramatic. It's crazy that she's so good at like those boring detail moments. And when I say boring moments, I mean the ones that are between like the big like plot twisty crazy like battles and like things are changing moments. So the fact that she's so good at writing those, but then when it comes to like those powerful scenes she's not, is just wild to me, because a lot of times authors just stick so many of those powerful scenes in a book that it no longer holds any type of power, because it's all just kind of the same. I would fix that. And then the second thing of breaking the tension, the part that just, this one, I don't know how they didn't like catch this one or like talk about it, is Yasmine and Altair. Okay, that tension was built up during this book. It started from the end of We Hunt the Flame. Like that epilogue where Yasmine goes into the arts and like actually sees Altair shoot her brother Dean, and like she vows that she's gonna like hate him, or like she's gonna go after him, or like whatever. And for them, then during the entire story, it was keeping them apart, and there were so many times where they almost ran into each other. And then for them not to even have that happen at all in the book. And the most that we had of the meeting was when Altair was being coronated and Yasmine saw him and was like, oh, he doesn't look like a killer. Excuse me? No, I needed that scene where they finally came face to face to see what the heck was going to happen. I don't care if they ended up liking each other. I don't care if Yasmine ended up trying to kill him. I don't care like what was going to happen. I just needed that moment to break that tension, because that kept on happening. Like when Yasmine like heard his voice and she was like, I need to go check out what is going on, because like she heard his name and she knew that that was his name. But then Zafira was like, oh no, but my wound, I need you to help me. And so like she got her away from there. And then the other time when Altair like saw her hair and was like, who is that? Oh, she has the most beautiful hair. Like she added in, Hafsa added in like the perfect tension building moments. But then for her not to have the scene where they finally met face to face and just to see what that was going to look like is baffling to me. That's like one of the things where I kept waiting. We were getting towards the end. There was only like a few pages left and I was like, oh, they have to meet at some point. I need to see what's going to happen with this. And then it never did. And then we got that lousy one line. She could have done so much with that. And really, it's just a missed opportunity. Who fumbled the ball on that one? Because that is so perfect. It's such a perfect plot point. And like, again, she set it up so beautifully for herself. She really did. And that's such a hard thing to do. And the fact that she did it so well and then she didn't even execute, oh, I was so bummed. I still am. With that, just a teeny tiny recap. Basically, the three things: cut out some of the fluff scenes, so like overlap some of the scenes and just tighten it up. 2, more description in the action scenes, like where are people spatially. And then 3, breaking of the tension, finishing the storyline that you have started and giving us that satisfying scene. So those are the 3 things. Now, this is going to be the only part that is going to be specifically for Miss Hafsa Faizal. This is my plea. Please, please continue with this story and do a spin-off story of Altair and Yasmine. Here are my thoughts. What I think would be really, really interesting, putting Altair and Yasmine together. I think that both of them would be so fun together because you're going to have 2 characters that are very outspoken, very silly, very humorous, but then also very sensitive. And so I think that they would make a really good couple. So that's 1. 2, you have all the different plot points to go off of those 2 characters. So starting with Altair, he's now the king. So he is trying to figure out how to be a king. He's trying to figure out what's going on with the Ifrit, where to put them, relations with the Ifrit. Not only that, but now the whole land has magic. He's got to figure out how he's going to rule over that. And then also dealing with the fact that he only has one eye. You know, dealing with, he's no longer this beautiful, conventionally beautiful man. He's now has a missing eye. He's feeling self-conscious about it, you know, whatever. So there's so much to play with when it comes to like his story and his plot line. And then Yasmine, we have Yasmine, who has just lost her husband. And she is dealing with being alone because I'm sure Zafira is going to be busy doing things. And so Yasmine, it should be about her figuring out what she's going to do, how to be alone, how to be without people because she's so used to being with people. But then also dealing with potential feelings for the guy that not only killed her brother, but also put her ex, now dead husband in her life, and like they got married and he's like part of the reason why Misk lied to her. And Altair trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that he has feelings for Yasmine, who is also a person that he has hurt in his past. So I just think it could be so interesting. There's still so much left of this world to play with, and I just think that would be the perfect book or books. The base is already laid for you, so you don't have to do a ton of world building if you don't want to. Obviously you have to do a little bit, but being able to just like enter into that, and she already has so many things laid out for herself, so it'd just be perfect. All she has to do is execute. So that is my plea. I think it would be a home run humdinger, and I would buy it without a doubt. I tried to do some research to see if like maybe that is what she's doing, but I haven't seen anything. So if anybody knows, let me know. I'm halfway convinced that maybe I will write a fanfic about it because I need it. I need this story. Okay. And that is it. Wow, I had such a good time reading these. This was just like out of nowhere. Like while I was reading this second book, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I actually adore this. It's wild to me that this is her debut, that these are her debut books. Like that is a natural talent right there. So that is it for today's video. I had lots of feelings. I feel like I got heated during it. Well, maybe not heated. Excited? Let me know if you have read these, your thoughts about my opinions, your thoughts about the books, things that maybe you would change or you wouldn't touch or whatever. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye!